Howard Nemeroff, our good friend, joins us. Howard, how are you tonight, sir?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. How are you guys doing?
We are good, Howard. It's good to talk to you, my friend.
So you wrote a piece. Let's start with the one you wrote about. After the Afghan terrorist attacks, troops must keep and bear arms at all times.
Hear, hear.
Why do you say that, sir?
Well, obviously because they need to be able to defend themselves, and I figure that the military brass knows that, as they say, an armed society is a polite society. I think it's real interesting that they would do that. It just proves that more guns means less violence.
Howard, when did we, this is Andrew Langer from the Institute for Liberty, when did we start this policy of restricting military personnel from being able to carry their sidearms when on base?
Oh, I don't remember exactly. I do know that, of course, it's been going on for a number of years, and we had the Fort Hood shooting with that Hassan fellow, where he murdered 12 soldiers, and even after that, they wouldn't change the rule.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if this is a Clinton era policy that somehow the Bush administration missed the boat on and missed an opportunity on, especially after September 11th, one would have thought.
But after Fort Hood, I mean, I don't understand.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me. We need these people to defend us in case of war or battle or invasion. Why wouldn't you be allowed to carry at all times? It really is kind of offensive.
And Howard, as we were discussing this actually during the break, and my point was, if you're gonna, because I've heard all sorts of crazy stories from guys being unarmed to guys having 1 or 2 rounds or an unloaded firearm, and if you trust the guy to be a part of the unit and to have a firearm weapon, you're going to trust him with one round or 100 rounds. You know, you're going to trust him or you're not. You know what I mean? And to not arm them, isn't that a way of saying we don't trust you?
Well, it sure seems like that, especially since Pentagon has their very own private security firm taking care of business there. It sounds like that, guns for me but not for thee.
Yeah, I keep coming back to this issue of and I've said this before about military personnel flying. You get a lot of military personnel flying in uniform, and I think that's a good thing. It seems to me that if you are if you carry a firearm in your course of business with the military, I think that you should be allowed to do that as well. I think it would certainly go a long way in terms of dealing with security issues that we continuously face. I would
built-in air marshals.
I would trust. That's exactly right. I would trust these guys much more than I trust either, frankly, Homeland Security or TSA.
And gentlemen, you mentioned Cameron, and you did as well, Howard, about the Fort Hood situation. Do you think, guys, does that make it? I think personally, it makes things worse for these guys to be armed, because when something like that happens, you have people on the other side, anti-gun people, say, well, they can't have firearms because how this guy got a firearm? That's the reason they're using to take the firearms away, because if he had a firearm, he could do this. If you take them all away while they're on the base, well, the base has got to be safer. It's like the gun-free zone, basically.
But why would a base ever be a gun-free zone?
Exactly
It should be a gun-filled zone.
Actually, technically, really, for thinking about this, the Fort Hood shooting is an example of what happens when you have a disarmed society in a microcosm. I mean, really, this is all what we always talk about. You disarm the population, one bad apple gets his hand on a firearm, and then all of a sudden a massacre occurs. So it should be an object lesson for everybody.
That keeps happening again and again. We've seen that a couple times recently. And it's just like you guys, I'm just amazed that a military base would be a gun-free zone. I thought the whole point was to train you in the arts of war and to train you in the arms of war. And you don't know when the enemy is going to attack, so you need to be ready. They're not letting these guys be ready. That just doesn't make any sense. I go back to John Lott's research where he showed that in right-to-carry states where civilians are able to carry firearms and concealed handguns in public, there was a 67% drop in the number of mass murder attacks and a 79% decrease in the number of people killed, and that's compared to places where people are disarmed. So he found a very significant difference there. And again, these mass murders keep happening in gun-free zones, and they're happening again. What 10 where they're averaging about one serviceman per day now in the last 2 weeks in Afghanistan.
Wow. Well, Howard, thank you so much for once again. You always make sense, sir, and we appreciate you being here with us. And you can see your stuff at pjmedia.com. Howard Nemeroff with PJ Media. Keep writing, sir. We'd love to read your stuff. Thank you.
Thanks for having me aboard.
Thanks, Howard.